So I've just watched the first 2 episodes of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and guys, I'm impressed.
I'm Spider-Man.
We're going to deep dive into all of the things that happen in these first 2 episodes because there's just so much to talk about, so many characters, so many things going on, so many stylistic choices they made, and I just want to talk about it. We're going to break it down. I'm going to give my thoughts, but before we get too far into this, guys, we're on the road to 3,000 subs and we're getting so close. If you're new to this channel, I would love to have you here. Also, leave a comment down below with your thoughts and theories because I read every single one and I most likely will respond. Lastly, let's try to get this video to 50 likes. Now let's go ahead and recap episode 1. So we open up with Peter Parker, not yet Spider-Man, and on his way to school, he runs into, well, Doctor Strange. He comes through this portal and he's fighting this Venom-like creature that has Kraven the Hunter's kind of fur around his neck. So I don't know if like Venom is Kraven in this universe or if Doctor Strange and this Venom creature are from a different universe. We don't know, but we do know that Peter has no idea who Doctor Strange is here. Not meaning he's from a different universe, but he could just not know who he is in general. And after this moment, I was like, okay, this is what if kind of should have been, in my opinion. I'm telling you guys, they introduced so many Marvel characters in these first 2 episodes, it's honestly hard to keep track of. Not just characters that we know, but kind of reinventing some of these characters that are very nostalgic and very legendary. And yes, we'll get into that stuff later. Before I get too far into what happens after Doctor Strange comes through this portal with the Venom creature, I want to talk about the scene between Aunt May and Peter. It is very reminiscent, and I almost think they did this on purpose. It looks just like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie when Uncle Ben drops him off at the beginning of the film, which I have playing in the background right now. We also learn here that Uncle Ben is no longer with us, kind of starting off at the same point where he starts off in the MCU in Civil War. But after Doctor Strange and this Venom creature fight, a spider comes through the portal and of course bites Peter. A little bit of a different origin story, but it's still kind of the same thing overall, and I really enjoyed it. It's here where we also meet Peter's friend Nico, and I've got to say, the supporting cast, all of the surrounding characters really steal the show for me. After this, we get the show's introduction title sequence, and my God, this is a beautiful thing to look at. I know we say it all the time with MCU movies and shows, how, you know, they're bringing comic books to life. This is literally a comic book coming to life. It's in a comic book style, and while I didn't think it was going to be for me, and I don't think it's going to be for everybody, I like it a lot more than I thought I would. It's retro-ish. It kind of reminds me of the 2000s MTV Spider-Man show in a way, but in the old school comic book style. We get so many looks at different costumes, different characters. I mean, there are so many Easter eggs. Let me know down below what you guys noticed in the intro sequence. We then jump into the future a couple months when Spider-Man has started to become Spider-Man. And I'll admit it, I really did not like the homemade suit that they chose for the show when I saw the trailer, but after seeing how it works, especially with the web shooters, I'm coming around on it big time. It's really growing on me. Having the big old CO2 canisters that allow him to shoot the webs is so cool, with the giant wires going to his arms. I really dig it. And we actually get to see him swing around New York City a little bit, and he ends up rescuing this guy who's about to be mugged on this social media app, and the guy getting mugged is Harry Osborne. This version of Harry Osborne doesn't know Peter Parker, he just knows Spider-Man from what I can tell, and he's very rich, he's very put together, and Peter saves his life, or Spider-Man saves his life. Because these guys were streaming themselves mugging people, Spider-Man becomes announced to the world essentially. Everyone sees who he is, and he starts to build a little bit of a reputation. Also, I'm pretty sure Najee Jeter, who voices Miles Morales in the video games, voices one of these thugs here. At school, Peter's talking to Nico, and we learn he has this crush on this girl who used to be his babysitter named Pearl, but she's actually into this guy named Lonnie, who's a football player. Now, if you know anything about Spider-Man villains, Lonnie does end up becoming Tombstone. And I thought this was just going to be like, oh, his name's Lonnie, cool little Easter egg, but then they develop his character. We see the rough neighborhood he grows up in, how he's trying to provide for his family and both be an athlete as well as a very studious person. And I really liked this a lot, considering if you just know the name, you know what his future possibly entails. I don't know if they're going to go down this route of turning Lonnie into Tombstone. I mean, they probably will, and it's going to be extremely heartbreaking now that we've got a lot more background from his character. Saying it again, the side characters, the friends of Spider-Man, everybody besides Peter Parker is getting a lot of screen time, and it's really, really well done. And I feel like it just adds to Peter Parker's story even more. The world around him is so large. We're seeing hints at so many different characters already in this first episode. And then at the end of this episode, we have Peter listening to the Alt-J song Left Hand Free, which was playing in his headphones during Civil War, and we get basically a reenactment of the first time Peter meets Tony Stark in Civil War, only this time in this show, it's not Tony Stark, it's Norman Osborne. And that's how you do a cliffhanger in the first episode. Immediately, I wanted to watch the second one. It really does feel like a fleshed out what if story, and if that's what they're going for, they're nailing it. An amazing first episode. The animation style, which I did not think I was going to like, turned out to be a very big bonus for me, considering the whole art direction of this show being retro future. The world building, I think, is the strongest aspect of this, having multiple heroes mentioned, having multiple characters' origin stories set up, having Peter Parker not be Spider-Man, but then, jumping so we skip the origin story with him because we've seen it so many times. I just think they made a lot of right choices. Now let's go ahead and recap episode 2. Oh, also the first episode is titled Amazing Fantasy, which is clearly a nod to Amazing Fantasy 15, which is the first ever appearance of Spider-Man in a comic book. The homepage for this series on Disney Plus also has a very big nod to it with the key art. Now on to episode 2. So just like Tony Stark offers Peter Parker an internship in Civil War, we see the same thing happen with Norman Osborn here in this show. And my God, Coleman Domingo, who plays Norman Osborn in this show, please, for the love of God, let him be Norman Osborn in the MCU, because the sinister voice, I can already feel the Goblin in him, and I don't know if he's Green Goblin yet, but wow, I cannot wait to see him turn into Green Goblin. So Peter's at school having a good time. We're also catching up with Nico, with Lonnie, and we're having a good time, but Peter has to go to his internship now at Oscorp. And it's here at this internship where we meet even more Marvel characters that have already been established in other forms of media. We have this girl Jean, who I guess is from the comic books. We have this girl from Wakanda, which is awesome because they're establishing that as well. And then we have Amadeus Cho, the guy who becomes the Hulk after Bruce Banner but keeps the intelligence and the strength. But then they top it off by having Dr. Whitman and Dr. Connors. Only this is a female Dr. Connors, who obviously is going to be turning into the Lizard at some point in this show. Again, with the world building, they're nailing it. They're just adding more and more and more while keeping the story moving. I mean, Peter is trying to fit into this internship, and he's really struggling balancing his life as Peter Parker with his love life and also just being Spider-Man and saving the day while also trying to have a professional career. I just think they're doing a great job executing a story that we've probably all seen before. We've seen the Peter Parker life balance situation, but here the circumstances are so different with the characters, with the storyline, that it feels really fresh. At his internship, Peter watches the news and sees a giant fires going on, and he has to leave, be Spider-Man, and save the day. He changes into his homemade suit in the stairwell of Oscorp and then goes to put out this fire, only to find out there's an actual perpetrator of this fire inside the building. I think this guy's name is Butane, and it was fun just to watch this action. It's really funny too, because he's giving off this shocker persona where he's just not all there in the head. He's supposed to be burning down a specific building for this contractor to build a brand new apartment complex, but he's actually just burning down the wrong building altogether. And Peter is like able to quip off of that and be really funny, giving off what we know as Spider-Man. Nonetheless, Peter fights this guy through this building, through a pet store, saves a bunch of animals, and then he heads back to his internship. And because he's been leaving and avoiding his job, he's been called up to Norman Osborn's office. And on his way up there, we even see a portrait of Norman Osborn with Captain America. I'm pretty sure Tony Stark exists in this universe, but I think Norman Osborn is kind of playing the role that he played in the MCU, being the billionaire rich science business guy. Peter goes up to his office where he apologizes for leaving and making all of these excuses, only Norman turns around the camera and shows that he saw him turn into Spider-Man in the stairwell. Another beautiful cliffhanger, leaving us hanging for the next couple episodes. I can't wait to see the next one. Maybe it's just animation, but it's very rare where I have a show where I really enjoyed the 30-minute only time span. And I think it really works for this show, not only because it's animated, but because of how much they're trying to do. Also, we're getting multiple episodes a week instead of just one, and I think that's a great choice as well. Now, I love Spider-Man. He's my favorite Marvel character. He's one of my favorite characters in pop culture in general, and I wasn't really super duper excited about this show. And I'm pleased, thrilled, ecstatic to tell you guys that this blew my expectations out of the water. I'll be honest, I thought this was going to be another what if. Not in the sense of being a different scenario, but just being kind of cool, but I don't really care. The difference here is that we're establishing one world that's different from our main MCU, where things are very different, and we're already being introduced into a bunch of characters who we care about, who we're spending time with, and who are definitely going to change as the series goes on. The things that they flip on their head, such as Norman Osborn recruiting Peter Parker for the internship, such as Peter getting bit by the spider from Doctor Strange fighting a venom monster. I mean, the differences here are really cool. It somewhat reminds me of the new Ultimate Spider-Man comic that they're doing right now, where they're switching a lot of fundamental things with Spider-Man's origin story and twisting it and making it its own thing. Overall, very pleased with this. I can't wait to see next week's episode. I think we're getting a couple more, not just one, so that's fantastic. Most importantly, I've got to know what you guys think down below in the comments, so leave those thoughts and theories down below, and I will see you all very, very soon.